real estate and finance expert, Nick Neal. He's here each week to bring you the honest truth about the Puget Sound real estate market. So now, here's your host, Nick Neal.
Hi, Seattle. I hope you're having a great Saturday. This is Real Estate Radio Northwest, and we're here to share our stories with you and provide you with good information so you can make the right decisions about real estate. If you'd like to reach us, our phone number is 888-638-1117, or you can find us online at realestateradionorthwest.com /home, and also on Facebook. We've got a good following now on Facebook, and we're getting a lot of activity there with interesting topics and input from people. So check that out, Real Estate Radio Northwest on Facebook. We've got a really neat guest with us today, actually a couple of them. And coming up, you got to stay with us. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the top 10 landlord mistakes. We're talking about property management and having investment properties handled properly so that they don't drive you crazy and make nightmares for you. And a lot of those nightmares are made, I'm sorry to say, by the people that actually own the properties and not doing things right. So we've got guest today, Steven Rozenberg. He's the owner of Empire Industries Property Management. Are you there with us, Steve? I don't have a... Seems like we've lost him here. And we've also got Steve Bighaus. He's the leader of Team BigHaus at SecurityNational Mortgage. Can you hear me, Steve?
I can hear you, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah. Are we having trouble there? Well, we'll get Steven Rozenberg on here in a second. He's coming in from Houston, Texas. And he's been in property management for years now and was an investor prior to that. So he found while being an investor that he was having trouble with managing his own properties and needing somebody else to do things for him and those things not being done in the right way. So you got him. Steve, are you there? Still don't have Steve. So Steve Bighaus, while we're trying to get Steven on the other line there, you guys have worked together for a while. Is he a good guy? Does he know what he's doing as far as property management?
Yeah, I don't get a lot involved with the property managers. Where I'm going to hear it back is the customers if they have issues. So as long as things are flowing smooth, that's great. I just thought it'd be a great opportunity. We've talked a lot about the shows that I'm doing with talking about real estate investing. Have somebody like Steve come on and talk about the advantages as far as property management, some of the problems, some of the solutions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and that's really important. That's the main aspect of having a rental property is making sure that you handle it right and get the right people in there, people that are going to know how to manage the property and or get the right tenants in there and have people that are going to manage those tenants properly. We having any luck yet?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yay, there he is. We got
is.
him now. Hey, we lost you there for a second. We were kind of having to wing it.
Oh, sorry about that. I was sitting here waiting. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So you're up and you can hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's great. And you're coming through nice and clear on this side. Well, this is Steven Rozenberg, owner of Empire Industries Property Management. How you doing today, Steve?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, I'm going to have to call you Steven and call Steve because we've got two Steves here, so we don't want to get that confused. We got Bighaus in the studio with us.
Fair enough. Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking a little bit about while we were trying to find you on the other side about what you do with property management and how you came into it, but just in real basics. Tell us a little bit about where you're at now and why you got to where you're at with property management.
Sure. So right now we manage about 400 houses in Houston, and the way that we got into it is me and my business partner, Pete Newbig, and we got into this kind of backwards, the property management world. We got into it as investors. My background, I actually started as an airline pilot, and as everybody knows, after 9/11, the airline industry wasn't looking too safe and too secure. And so I started looking for other ways of what I would do if this whole airline thing went away, and everything kind of led towards investing and buying investment properties. So I started buying properties, started flipping properties, wholesaling, doing all that stuff back in 2001, 2002. And I joined some investment clubs, and that's where I met Pete, my business partner. And we partnered on an apartment complex, started buying some apartments and some houses. After we sold that apartment complex, he actually owned several of them. But what happened was he and I started buying some properties together. And little did we know we were buying the wrong types of properties. But at the time, we thought we were the smartest guys in the world because we were buying these properties that nobody else was buying, these low-income homes.
Isn't that funny how that works? I mean, you seem like you're getting
Yeah.
a great deal. Oh my God, this thing appraises for $400,000 and I'm getting it for $125,000. I wonder, you'd think that there must be a reason there, that it's priced at that.
Yeah, we're the smartest guys in the world. Why don't we buy more? So we bought about 20 houses in the course of about a year and a half, and then it kind of hit us. And then we found out why people don't own that many low-income properties without a plan. And what happened is we just had a lot of maintenance problems, a lot of issues, a lot of things going on with our properties, and we were really in a bad way. We were just kind of in a tailspin. So we decided that we would interview some management companies, remove ourselves from it. Pete took that task. He started interviewing some companies, and about 3 months later, he came back even more discouraged than when we started this quest, because one of the biggest problems we felt was none of these management companies owned anything that we had, and they didn't own properties. And we kind of just thought, if they're not owning properties and they don't know what they're doing, how are they going to fix our problem? Because we were hoping we could just dump all of this problem on them and they would magically wave a wand and they would fix it. And we realized that wasn't going to happen. So what we ended up doing was he and I sat down for about 6 months. And from our perspective, from the eyes of an investor, we actually started creating all the policies and procedures how we felt it should run. And so what happened was we did this on our own just for self-preservation. It was never to start a business. And after about 6 months of doing this, our property stabilized. We probably kicked out about 65% of our deadbeat tenants that really they weren't paying anyways. They were just living in the property.
Man, how many houses are you talking about here? Doors are you talking about?
At the time, we only had about 20 doors. And when we fixed them, everything stabilized. So what did we do? We started buying more doors. And you thought we would have learned our lesson, but we didn't. We thought we fixed the problem, and we thought we could keep going. We got up to about 35 doors and single-family properties, and still owned. Pete had a 52-unit D apartment complex as well. And what happened was we started having other investors approach us that knew us, that saw that we were in this rapid tailspin, and asked us, hey, could you guys do what you did with our properties, do it for them? And can we fix their problems? So it was just a matter of putting policies, procedures in place and running it really like a business. That's really what it boiled down to, is we realized that if we ran it like a business and removed ourselves emotionally from it, it would actually operate correctly. And so that was the inception of our management company, and people just started throwing their properties at us as quickly as they could. That was about 3.5 years ago, and now we're up to about 400 properties.
Wow, boy, and that's neat. And what you said about treating it as a business, you just think that people would do that from the get-go. I mean, if you spend $300,000 on a business that you're going to run yourself, you're going to treat it like a business. But you go out and spend $300,000 on a rental property and just treat it kind of like a sideline or something that you can just kind of ignore, get set up, hoping to get it set up to where it's going to kind of manage itself. But that just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, and what I always when I talk to investors, I do a lot of conversations with investors when they want my opinion or help. And one of the things that I've learned is when I talk to them is what I realize is the biggest reason they fail is it's a business. If they have one house or they have 50 houses, they own a business. And the IRS says they're a business. Here in Texas, the Texas Real Estate Commission says they're a business. Fair housing, discrimination, everybody says they are a business. The only person that doesn't actually think they're a business is the owner. And the way I explain it to an owner is just because you have the financial wherewithal to buy a property doesn't mean you have the financial education to run that business. And you're better off either learning it before you get involved, or you need to hand it over to someone and partner with someone that can. And the only way I can equate it to is it's like getting on the road with a blindfold on, putting it in drive and just going. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you're doing, the chances of you crashing are astronomically high. So it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And normally investors, they're the highest suit in real estate because they don't realize the laws and regulations that govern them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we were talking about that last week from the other side with the financial advisor, and about how important it is to get set up financially with LLCs and other things prior to even buying properties. In a lot of cases, you want to do that ahead of a time and get a business set up before you even bring the properties into it. But it's the same thing with people doing their own taxes. I see people with millions of dollars going through their accounts, and Where's that coming from? There we go. We get, they get set up in their taxes and start having issues, and next thing you know, they're $200,000 behind with the IRS.
It's on the phone line.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Stephen, do you have a speaker or something on the other side there?
No, I don't actually.
We're getting a feedback come through.
Yeah, it's coming through my computer. I muted you, but you're not muted on your side, I think.
Oh, you got that? That was James. James, how you doing over there?
30 seconds.
You wanted to be noticed, right? We noticed you now. Yeah, that's our guy up here. Sorry about that, Stephen. We're getting all this stuff out of the way. By the second segment, we'll be solid.
No problem.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I just said we had a little issue here with our guy with the feedback on the computer side.
No, but before that, when you were talking.
About taxes. Oh, yeah, how people can just feel like they're doing themselves a favor by saving money by doing their own taxes, and that they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and I've had guys end up with $200,000 IRS bill by doing that.
Yeah, and
Music up.
It's obviously I'm in the airline business, but I equate it to people getting in a plane and trying to fly themselves to Hawaii. Could you? Yeah. Would you crash? Probably.
Exactly.
You may make it, or you can just get on and buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want excitement or do you want stability? And
15 seconds.
Well, we're running into break. Yeah. That's what the music means there. Good to have you on, Stephen. I think we got a set up for a smooth ride on the second segment. So we'll be right back. Real Estate Radio Northwest with Stephen Rozenberg, Property Management, Empire Industries. Be right back.
SecurityNational Mortgage Company is licensed in Washington State and is an equal housing lender. Opinions discussed on this program should not be deemed the opinion of SecurityNational Mortgage, its parent company, or affiliates. Content is based upon information considered reliable, but neither SecurityNational Mortgage or its affiliates warrants its completeness, accuracy, or is it a commitment of any kind. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to underwriter approval. Company NMLS ID number 3116.
Collect the money. Pretty easy, right? But wait, there's more. You have to get the home rent ready. Next, you have to advertise. Then show the home to prospective tenants, screen these tenants, and finally move them in. Okay, now you're done. Well, let's see. Next, you have to inspect the home, deal with repairs, collect rent, and deal with...
Thanks for staying with us live in Seattle. This is Nick Neal on AM 1590, The Answer, and Business Radio KKOL AM 1300. We've got Steve Rozenberg with us coming live from Houston, Texas. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Or I'm sorry, Steven, because you're Steven and we got Steve in the studio.
Yeah.
It worked. He's there. We had trouble in the first segment, but I think we've got everything dialed in now. And we've got Steve Bighaus with us. He's a team leader of Team Bighaus at SecurityNational Mortgage, and he's a finance guy that brought in Stephen Rozenberg. And he comes in once a month with us to talk about investment opportunities around the country. We've talked about Houston, we've talked about Columbus, we've talked about other areas and opportunities in places where values might be a little bit more palatable. You know, Seattle, getting into rental properties, you can find a fixer-upper in a lot of areas for, $200,000, $225,000, $250,000. A lot of nicer areas you're going to be spending $400,000 for rental properties. So we're bringing Steve in once a month to talk about other opportunities in other areas with some of the wholesalers and some of the people that he works with on his daily business. How many loans you run a month, Steve, on average?
I don't know, 30 to 40.
Yeah, and you think you're going to double that here pretty quick.
Yep.
That's crazy. Yeah, and he does an amazing job of them. These are guys that have tax returns with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 properties in them. He's able to run those files with his team and close them on time and just do an amazing job on the investment side. So love having him here with us. Stephen, getting back to you, I'd had some topics that coming up in the segment second talking about Houston and opportunities down there, but I really like where we're going with the property management side. Is it okay if we just stay with that?
Sure, yeah.
Cool. And you sent us a list, going off of Letterman a little bit with the top 10. This is actually the top 12 landlord mistakes, and this would be a good time maybe to talk about that. So top
Sure.
number 1 is not running efficient credit. Criminal background checks. Properties have been vacant on. That's pretty straightforward. Showing a dirty property. I mean, that's like trying to sell a used car that looks like somebody's been eaten out of the back seat. Number 3, not having a procedure for evictions, or having a procedure but not sticking to it and taking in partial payments. Those are big no-nos as well. Not having all the documentation for eviction court.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. One thing that Pete and I learned very quickly, well, I shouldn't say quickly, it probably took us a year or two to figure it out, but once we realized it was quick, that when Pete and I were doing everything wrong, we had about a 30% eviction rate. And it all started with putting the wrong person in the property. And everything else that is on that list is probably something that we did at some point in our career. Now we have a 2% eviction rate, or less than 2%, with 400 properties.
Boy,
and all that, it all
that's
goes
incredible.
back to, we are just very strict in who we put in the property, because from a property manager standpoint, the last thing we want to do is take someone else's problem, put them in an owner's property, and now they're our problem. And now we're married to that person for a year, and we have to deal with their problems. And, we've learned, being investors, of what the kind of red flags are, what the tricks are, because I wouldn't say we've learned them all, but we've been taught many lessons by tenants. I always tell owners, tenants have been renting their whole lives. You've been a landlord for maybe a year or two. So who do you think knows the rules? Yeah.
And who's going to follow the patterns that they followed in the past? They've been renting for years, and are they probably going to do the same thing with you that they did with the last guy? So why not find out what their history's like, right?
Yeah, you look at their past, you'll see their future. So we are very strict. Any red flag pops up, we don't take them.
Yeah.
And we've learned that by doing that is made our lives much easier, and makes the owners' lives easier, because their business is running profitable and less headache by us putting the right people in. We are very, very strict in our policies of what we'll take and not take, and we don't deviate. And a lot of that also has to do with fair housing and discrimination laws. They have to give us a full packet. We give them steps that they have to do. They have to go online, pay for the rental application online. They've got to submit their information online. So there's a lot of steps they have to go through to make that happen. And if they don't do those things, and if their background doesn't check out, we don't bend the rules. We don't take the liberty of desperation, because in reality, you put the wrong person in, the house is still vacant. You just don't know it yet.
Exactly.
It's still empty.
It's vacant, and it's not even a potential rental at that point.
Yeah, and you're going to have a make ready now.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. Well, and when you talk about background check, do you use an agency for that, or how much work? With our experience, again, we were trying to do everything by ourselves before we got smart and started hiring property management companies. But you figure you got a sheet, like a rental application sheet that has a place for a couple references on it. So they give you a couple phone numbers, and you call those, and of course they're their friends or a family member or somebody that's going to say something good about them. But what when you talk about a background check, what are you talking about there?
Well, we do a credit criminal background check. We have our qualifications. So, for example, for us, it's 3 times the income, no felonies, no evictions. We want to see paycheck stubs. If they're a self-contractor, we want to see W-2s. We want to make sure that they can prove that they can make the money. We call their employment. We want to see a letter of reference from an employment from the company's letterhead, not from their buddy down the street. So those are a lot of things. And then, you want to maybe Google the company that is the referring company and call the number from the online ad, not the number on the letterhead. Yeah. Because the number on the letterhead could be your buddy. So when you call it online and get the verification, you know you're getting the real company.
Man, it sounds like a mini loan application. I mean, we do the same thing when we're getting people approved for financing before we lend them $500,000. So.
Well, and when you think about it, you said it earlier, you've got a guy that has a $300,000-$400,000 business, and you got to ask yourself, this is the generator of that business. I've always, my theory is when investors buy a property, it's like going to the nursery. They're buying the nicest tree in the yard. They're getting the best deal because they negotiated it, and the seller really needed to sell that tree. They take it home, they put it in the ground, and they never water it. And then they wonder why it dies and never bears fruit. And that's the same scenario as them buying a house, not knowing what to do, putting the wrong person in, and wondering why they lost the house to foreclosure.
Yeah.
Same basic setup.
Yeah, no, it seems like a no-brainer in common sense, but when you're in the moment and you're panicking, you've still got this big mortgage payment coming in every month.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to not follow your own rules. Well, we've gotten a good tenant in there. We've done the background check thing. We've done the credit check. We've gotten a good tenant in. The other things you're talking about, like number 5, being stubborn about not fixing maintenance items because it's in the lease contract that you're not supposed to have to fix small issues or something. But this is kind of hinting at, and what some of the other ones are, building a good relationship with your tenants.
Yeah, and the thing you got to remember too that a lot of people don't realize is, at least with us, is there's things that are by law the owner has to fix, whether it's in the lease or not. Is it making the house unsafe or uninhabitable, or is it cosmetic? If it's a cosmetic issue, that's a different story than it's structural. So if the roof is caving in and the tenant calls, you can't tell the tenant, okay, well, give us the $75 and then we'll send someone out. So now the flip side is we have some owners that if there's a leak under the sink, for example, they want to charge the tenant the fee. So there's different schools of thought in that. You don't fix that leak, and the tenant says, well, I could care less about that leak. I'll let it leak. So next thing you know, for a year, that thing has been leaking constantly. So for $75 that you wanted to gain to prove a point to a tenant, you now have several $1,000s in mold remediation to fix the issue. When the tenant leaves, you still have to fix the leak. It doesn't matter. Now you have this problem that you were trying to save $75 or at least prove that you're not going to be taken advantage of. So, you have to think of these things as they come up as to whether or not, at the end of the day, it's your investment property. It's your home. And if you're not treating it that way and you're not treating it as your home, are you doing the best thing for your investment property? Because they're going to leave and you're still going to have that problem.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's going to be your fixed asset that they're involved with. Kind of like letting somebody borrow your car. Are they going to treat it well while they're driving it? And when they bring it back, is it going to be solid or not? Steve, does this make sense to you? You deal with a lot of people and investors. How do you feel about what he's talking about, and what do you feel from your investors as far as property management? Do most of them use companies, or do they manage their own?
Oh, they all use property management companies.
They do. Yeah. And so you felt, is that something that you try to help them get set up with?
No, I don't.
Or recommend,
no.
or
that's typically the individual they're buying the property from will assist them with the property management, and the majority of people have their own in-house property management.
Yeah, and these are the companies that you're working with around the country.
Correct.
So a lot of these people are out of state, where it's even more critical.
Yeah.
It makes 100% sense in that case. If you're not living in Houston, you're not going to buy a house there and try and manage it yourself. But if you're, even if it's down the street from you, I still think it makes sense to have that. Well, a couple more here. We're getting close to the end, but they have to do with maintenance and initially. Where was the one? Let's see. Having the house set up, kind of scrimping when you buy a house. Oh, it was talking about buying a house and not having the money to get it rent ready.
Yeah.
About putting in, trying to make it really, really nice. How far should you go to get a house ready to be rent ready?
Well, you want it to be clean and functional, and you want to make sure that it fits the neighborhood. If you're in a lower income area, it doesn't make sense necessarily to, restructure the house and put granite countertops and make a fourth floor in the house. One thing that I could tell you that Pete and I made a very large mistake in when we bought these properties so quickly is we never thought that it would rain. We never thought we'd need that rainy day fund. And we thought, well, if anything happens, we'll use the cash flow from these properties to offset what we were doing. And that was a huge mistake that we never, even though we had regular jobs, luckily, that's how we were able to support the maintenance and the capital improvements of the properties. But I think that was a huge mistake because, we had a hurricane come through, Hurricane Ike came through, and we lost about 20 roofs on our houses. Now, luckily, the insurance was taken care of on those, but, that if the insurance blinked or didn't do it or, delayed for several months, that could have put us under. So a lot of that is just, a lot of people, they don't want to.
Music up.
Number one, they don't put the capital aside thinking that there's not going to be any problems. And number two, they don't make it so that it's clean and functional and so that when people walk in, they say, I can picture myself living in this house.
Yeah, well, back again to treating it like a business.
Treating it like a business.
Yeah, well, that's the music. Heading into a break here, Real Estate Radio Northwest with Steve Rozenberg from Empire Property Management out of Houston. We're going to talk a little bit about the Houston market down there, too, but just loving this advice on property
5.
management. We've got Steve Bighaus, too, from Team Bighaus at SecurityNational Mortgage. Be right back after the break. Heather Pickin, our very own Heather Pickin.
Hi, this is Steve Rozenberg with Empire Industries Property Management Company. I'm sitting here today with Tony May from the May Insurance Group. And what we're going to do today is talk about our partnership that we're announcing with the May Insurance Group. Tony, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure, Steve. First of all, I'm glad to be here. Look forward to working with you guys. Since I met you about 2 years ago, I've always been impressed with you and your management and ownership on your professionalism and your commitment to customer
payments, and finally move these tenants out and do this all over again. There are also risks involved, like fair housing issues, insurance liability, unauthorized occupants and pets.
Hi, this is Steve Rozenberg with Empire Industries Property Management Company located here in Houston, Texas. And today what we're going to talk about is at what point does someone need a property management company? Something we get asked a lot. Is it 1 houses, 5 houses, 20 houses? And I don't think there's really a set answer for that. I think it depends on what the person's business model is and how they plan to grow their rental property portfolio.
There are also legal risks like habitability issues, and financial risks that include property damage and legal costs. Let's face it, you need help. Empire
service, and I've gotten to get inside and know your company a little bit closer. I'm really have always been impressed top to bottom with the honesty and integrity of how you guys go to market. As far as what I can do, we provide insurance products that can help throughout the process. We work with the realtors to provide the insurance protection that they need.
Okay.
We also work with landlords for their property protection, and then with the tenants for their renter's insurance.
Okay.
So we've got a full line of products that can help everyone involved.
All right.
Empire Industries, providing frustration-free property management by investors for investors. At Empire Industries, we are not only property managers, but we are investors like you. By making us part of your team, we help make your income truly passive.
If they're trying to do everything themselves, kind of like my business partner and I first started doing, you could do that. You could make a lot of mistakes like we did. You can learn from those mistakes. Hopefully none of them are fatal and none of them will put you out of business. But you definitely will learn some serious lessons. And you can go that route, or you can do what we learned later on in our investing career, and you can leverage your team. One thing we found that very interesting is a lot of people, when they want to buy a property, they use a professional real estate agent. Then when they want to buy the property, they get a mortgage lender to lend them the money. They close at a professional title company. But what's interesting is when they actually want to get the return out of the property, the most important part of managing that asset, that's the part that they've decided that they're going to do on their own. So to me, it just doesn't
Now,
make sense.
here's Nick.
Hi, this is Real Estate Radio Northwest on the Answer 1590 and Business Radio KKOL AM 1300, and we're looking out over Wajimaya. We've got CenturyLink Field on the other side and our new studios here. Isn't this nice, Steve?
It is nice.
Yeah, it's really pretty. It was neat having the view of Lake Union down in Blanchard, but it's just a nice, comfortable, bright, higher ceilings, and got a parking lot. Everybody's over at Wajimaya having lunch, it looks like, but going to go do that after the show probably. And then talking about property management, we want to get into a little bit about Houston market and the opportunities down there. Steven Rozenberg on the other line. But we're really in a good place here with the property management and the advice that you're giving. Can we continue on a little with the mistakes that landlords make and the solutions for them?
Oh, we could talk all day about our mistakes, no problem.
Well, and we were talking about getting the property set up because a lot of people, I know Steve's got places where you buy an investment property with him in another location, and you actually have a turnkey rental property. I mean, that's how they sell them. These wholesaler guys, they fix them up, get them ready to rent, and sell them that way. But a lot of people go and they're trying to find. It's not a place that you're going to want to live in. So that seems to be what people kind of key as a rental house, and they're a rental house because they're kind of crusty. You know what I mean? It's not someplace you'd want to live. How much work do you want to put in to make it nice for somebody else to live in? But what's the process for you guys when you find a place that you buy? How do you kind of analyze what you're going to do? You talk about getting vendors set up ahead of time to be able to. If you're doing this as a business, this is going to be an ongoing thing. But how do you do that? Figure what you can really do and make work for a rental property.
Sure. So just to give you an idea, of our 400 properties, 50 to 60% of all of our clients don't live in Houston or the state or even in the country. So our whole system is actually set up for the out-of-town investor or the investor that lives here but wants us to take care of everything. So even if they live here, we treat it like they don't live here. So one of the first things that we do, we think that we should be a partner to the investor that's buying the property, not just someone who, quote unquote, collects the rent. So to me, in my opinion, that starts in the inception when they're thinking of buying the home. So what we do is when we get an investor that actually is looking to buy a property and they get a contract on it, so let's say they have an option period of maybe 10 days, we will actually go free of charge to the property. We will do a full walkthrough of the property. We will do a video analysis, so we'll give them a full 360-degree tour of the property, and we will write up a full assessment report of the property. And we're doing this to give them our opinion as investors. So we're not doing it as an appraisal or an inspection. We're just saying if we were an investor and we were buying this property, these are the things we're looking at, because doing pictures and giving you just a write-up doesn't really give you a 3D opinion of it. Where we're from here, we know the area, we know what's going on, and more importantly, if we're going to manage it, we want to make sure that you're buying something that we're willing to take on.
Yeah,
so
boy, that's a good point, because you're going to be involved with the business in essence going forward. So if it's a crusty property, you don't want that.
Yeah, we've had investors buy properties and say, hey, we love you guys, we want you to manage it. We say, why'd you buy that? That's a horrible property.
I don't want to manage that.
So
Let me give you a card of somebody I don't like. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've learned to get in front of it and be proactive with the investor and say, look, let us be a part of it. So I have investors all the time when they're looking, they'll just shoot me an email saying, hey, what do you think about this area? Should I go forward or should I not? And I'll say, yeah, I would, go forward. If the numbers make sense, put a contract on it, and then let me go look at it and let us give you our opinion. And, then you get inspection and appraisals and all that stuff. So, we think that's part of really being a team, as opposed to just saying, hey, we'll collect the rent, which we think is, as investors, we think that's a very important step, because if they buy it correctly, what are they going to do? They're going to probably buy more properties, and they're probably going to refer more people to us.
Exactly.
So it just makes sense.
Boy, that's a really cool partnership that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so when we do that, we'll give them our opinion. The roof looks good, because, if you ask an inspector when they're inspecting a house, they're going to obviously always err on the side of caution, and they may say it needs a new roof. Well, we may look at it and say, well, it may need a new roof, but it doesn't need a new roof right now, in our opinion. Yeah. You may need a new roof down the road, and just know that down the road you may have to replace that roof. But in our opinion, it's not leaking, it's not sagging, and we're just giving them an opinion as an investor, because we feel, they're a handicap. They should not have to fly down here just to lay eyes on the property if they have the right team in place. And we're that team that can give them an opinion, because an investor that wants to come down here that knows nothing about investing, nothing about homes, they're going to come in, they're going to spend 5 minutes looking around and basically say, yeah, it's a house. It looks like a house to me. So what good does that do anyone, as opposed to having us as the property management company put eyes on it and give them our opinion?
Exactly. Well, just like raising a kid. I mean, you're going to go forward and manage the baby, so to speak.
Yeah,
from then
absolutely.
on.
So that, we want them to know that we're a part of their success, and we're trying to make sure that they don't make a bad decision from the inception, as opposed to having to fix that problem after they buy it.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up something too with capital. I mean, getting into a property, it can be expensive. A lot of times, I know, Steve, with investments, we got to put 20% down.
Correct.
Most of the time. So they might not have a whole ton of money after they get into the property, be able to do everything that they need to do. But, if you purchase a place, and like you said, if the roof doesn't need fixed today, can you also help them kind of schedule and set out, this is a great house. It's going to be rentable now. We got to put maybe $2,000 to get it to that point. Over the next 5 years, these are the things we see coming up that you're going to want to do to either get it more appealing as a rental or maintenance-wise. Do you do that kind of thing too, or?
We do to a degree. When you have a house that's sitting dormant, you really don't know until you start flipping switches and turning water on what is needed. So when you have a house, let's say it's a foreclosure and it's been sitting empty for 6 months, you don't know if the water pipes are working okay. Until someone's actually living in the property, even if you turn the power on and turn the lights on, you don't know if all the sockets work correct. I mean, obviously, if you get an inspection, but it's not giving you a constant up-to-date information. So we can get them quotes on what we think it'll need, and we can say, look, that's something that you could probably push to the next tenant. So, for example, we may walk in a property and say, you know what, the carpet may need to be replaced, but my suggestion would be let's clean it and then know that when the tenant moves out the next time, you're probably going to have to replace the carpet at that time. So we're just giving them a heads up as opposed to them saying, I want to replace the carpet right now, when it's really, it may be not the best, but it's definitely showable if we had it cleaned. And, and then we go ahead and we can get them bids on what it would take to get it ready so that they have a good idea of what they're looking at.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that I work with locally, they've literally got teams of contractors that are set up ahead of time. When they buy a place, they just set the team loose on it and they go in and know how to get it rent ready. But for somebody just starting out, having some help with that and finding the right contractors too that aren't going to be, they're going to do a good job, but they're still going to give you a good price. Do you help with that too?
Absolutely. We have our vendors, and the way we do business is we don't mark up any of our maintenance costs. So we've negotiated volume pricing because you got to remember too, our houses are in that mix just like the other guy's house. So the guy may go from their house to our house. So it's the same deal. And we feel it's a conflict of interest for us to mark it up. And we also price check them. So what we do that, so we know that they're getting us the best price. We have a sit down with every vendor to make sure that we have that conversation with them of what we expect of them, how we expect them to operate in the property, what we expect them to do on the pricing level, the responsiveness, and then we following up with the tenant to make sure that once the job is done, that it's done to the satisfaction. They weren't rude. They showed up on time. Because if all of a sudden we start getting complaints from the vendor, then we have a talk with that vendor and say what's going on. And like you said, when we have 400 houses, the price we're going to pay at 2 a.m. for a plumber to go fix something is going to be a lot different than the guy who has one property that goes out there, because the guys we use know we give them a lot of business. So it's a little economies of scale that we get with the volume.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's just awesome. And then things, we got 10, 11, and 12 here. Not keeping good accounting records. That, again, just like a business. How does that work with you guys and with the business owner as far as accounting and tracking rents? And how does the money move around?
Well, as you can imagine, we have a lot of moving parts. We took it a step further. We know how important that is as investors to get your money. So we do several things. Number one, we start off by making sure that the tenants will pay their rent either online through ACH, they pay through monthly auto draft, or they pay with credit card. We don't want them paying through check. We don't want them coming and dropping it off to us. We want it to come in electronically. And the reason we want that is we can turn around and we can ACH it into the owner's bank accounts very early in the month. And we send them their money. We have an accountant, full on-time bookkeeper on staff, and all he does is he deals with the financials for the investor. So we do multiple wire transfers. I think we do about 5 or 6 throughout the month. A lot of companies, when we were looking, only did one per month on like the 15th of the month. Well, if we have 20 mortgages due, getting our money on the 15th really doesn't do us any good, or we have to have a very large reserve. So we start wiring the money to owners' accounts on the 5th of the month because we know they have mortgages. They've got stuff they've got to pay. We also send them monthly accounting statements, profit and loss, a cash summary report, other things to give them updates on their property. And most importantly, our software that we use, our property management software, allows the owner to actually log in to our software and have full access to our system. And they can see all the financials, all the ledgers, the tenant's payment history. They can see everything in the portal, so that they sometimes don't even need to call us. They can call up and answer their question right there on their own by pulling the data themselves. So that's why by us, like I said, our owners are out of town, out of country. We've got owners in China, Israel, Australia. They're on different time zones. So if they just have a question, they can log in and answer their question a lot of times. And we have a dedicated person to handle the financials for that person.
Boy, that's awesome. And so what about things like, we're just about heading into a break here, but like a repair issue or something that you guys, owners probably aren't going to want to hear about everything. If you have to have a plumber go out, is that just set up in that accounting system that you have, and owners expect that there's going to be some bills for maintenance in there?
It's funny you say that. Every time anything happens with their property, they get a notification. We're not asking their opinion. We're not asking their advice. We're just letting them know when a service ticket is opened on their property, they will get a notification and what the service
Music
is.
up.
We're already dispatching someone. We're already taking care of it. And if it's under a certain threshold, we'll do it. If it's over a certain price threshold, we have to get authorization. But we think it's important that they know what's going on, but we don't necessarily want to ask their advice. We just want them to know that something happened and we're taking
15.
care of it for them.
Awesome. Wow. Well, the music means we're heading into a break. We'll be right back to talk with Steven Rozenberg and steve.bighaus. More with property management, and talk a little bit about what's going on in Houston and opportunities down there for investing. Be right back with Real Estate Radio Northwest.
Real Estate Radio Northwest is hosted by
be informed of everything but have to do nothing. Our service is backed by a 7-point guarantee or no management fee. Empire Industries. Are you tired of tenants, toilets, and turmoil? Call us today for a free quote. So you want to rent a
That's the most important part, and that's what they're doing to decide that that's the part. And just because you're financially capable to buy a house doesn't mean you're financially educated to run that business. From there, we created a property management company with a very, very successful business model. And what we do, our goal is to make sure that the owner's properties are run like a business as opposed to running it like a hobby. So
get it rented, collect the money. Pretty easy, right? But wait, there's more.
we make sure that they adhere to strict policies and procedures and make sure that the tenants not only abide by the lease but pay their rent. And ultimately, we want to make sure that the owners have a profitable business, but also one that will not get them sued or get them in trouble. So we do everything from the viewpoint of investors, and we've been very successful with that business model for all of our clients.
Now, here's Nick.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Northwest. We've got Steven Rozenberg from Empire Industries Property. Is that right? Empire Industries Property Management, right? I mean, you guys really, you sound like an industry with all the stuff that you're doing. It's amazing. I mean, you think about property management. I'm going to take the rent check. I might have to call a plumber sometime. I'm going to let you know, if you're out of state, what's going on. But boy, you guys, I mean, you literally are running the business.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, to do it right, we really, we realize there's a lot of things that go on, and we realized when we were just being regular investors what we were not doing and what we were doing wrong, and how, I mean, the landlord, we didn't even get into this, but the landlord is the highest sued in real estate, and for so many reasons. And there's so many things you don't know that, we are very big into educating ourselves. My partner, Pete, he's the president of the Houston chapter for National Association of Residential Property Managers. We go to fair housing information. So we're really dedicated to being educated and being on top of our game because we have a lot of money. We manage, we control about $43 million in investor assets.
Wow.
So there's a lot of money at stake that we're in charge of. So we feel they're paying for that. It behooves us to make sure we know what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, gosh, Steve had a couple questions on what fees were?
Yeah, as far as property management fees, Steve had mentioned earlier talking about caps as far as, they go up to a certain dollar figure. And just get an
For
idea
repair?
for what those would be.
Yeah. What do you guys charge for your service, and how does that work?
So we charge, it's all based on the monthly rent. So we charge 10% of the rent is our management fee. And, the average rental price, what we're seeing is the sweet spot is anywhere between $1,200 to about $2,200 a month. So if you factor that in, that's about $4 a day, $5 a day to have us manage your property, depending on how much it is. But that's really the bulk of the good rental properties that rent quick. They have good tenants, long-term tenants. So, I always ask people, are we worth $4 to $5 a day for having a team of 11 people, along with my business partner and myself? I think so.
Yeah, that's back to a latte, right? Everybody compares things to lattes with Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Yeah, cut out your latte and let these guys take care of all your troubles. Well, you touched a little bit about a rent in Houston. This is our last segment. I want to talk a little bit about, you can share what you guys have for opportunities down there and why Houston's a great place to invest.
Oh, yeah. Well, as everyone, knows or doesn't know, but Houston is literally on fire right now with the way things are going. It's the fourth largest city in the U.S. You have New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston. The median house prices in those other cities are $485,000 to $649,000, and the median house price in Houston is $221,000. Okay,
crazy.
You have 200. Yeah, there's 250 non-owner occupied homes, which are rental homes, in Houston. 65% of the city rents. Okay, so those are some metrics. Now, obviously, oil runs Houston. Every single thing starts and stops with oil in Houston.
So it still does. We knew that was the case back in the 70s, but it's still that way, huh?
Absolutely. Exxon is putting the largest plant in the world here. It's a 385-acre complex in a very congested area already. It's going to bring about 12,000 jobs and about another 20,000 secondary jobs, schools, dry cleaners, that kind of stuff. The medical center is the world's largest medical center in the world. They say every type of medicine is actually practiced here in Houston, and if it was its own city, it would be the 16th largest in the U.S.
Oh, jeez.
Obviously, you've got two of the largest airlines in the world, Southwest Airlines and United Airlines, have hub of operations here. You've got the country's largest exporting port is here in Houston, and when the Panama Canal is widened, which is what they're doing now, it's actually going to overtake Seattle and Los Angeles as the largest importing port because of NAFTA.
Wow.
So you just have a lot of things. And, you'd mentioned oil in the 70s. Because of the oil bust in the 80s, they didn't do any building for about 15 years, up until the mid-90s. Because of that, they are at a 10-year shortage in housing construction right now. So they cannot keep up with the demand. So they're trying to build as quickly as they can on the housing. As far as the city goes, they're bringing in, I think that the state of Texas is bringing in 1,600 people a day that are moving to the state of Texas, and Houston is the largest growing city in the state of Texas.
Well, so how come your prices are still down? Your median price being around $200,000. What's keeping that affordable like that?
I think a lot of it has to do, there's so much land out here, they can just keep going out. They can just keep expanding. So, when you go into the inner city area that they're doing the, rejuvenation of the city, you're seeing a lot more higher priced properties, $1,500,000, those kind of properties. And people are buying them, they're flipping them, they're raising the shacks and they're turning them into, townhome style properties. But as you get out into the suburbs, there's so much land. People are selling their land off. All the farmers, everything. You can just keep on going, and the urban sprawl is just continuing to go. And you can see they're actually building a lot of freeways out here. They're widening roads just because there's so much construction up in the northern part of Houston, the northwest, that it's just amazing. And you were starting to see prices creep with the oil coming down a little bit. It's been a little bit of a blip of the radar, even though they said that Houston is still going to add 35,000 jobs this year to the city. So I don't think it's going to affect it as much as some people may think. I think you're going to see a lot of the speculators that were overpaying for properties. For a while there, last year, a year and a half ago, people would literally within hours have a contract on their property without even putting the sign in the yard. So that was getting a little crazy, which was starting to drive up the prices. That has subsided, and I think a lot of the speculators are going off to another city. But the demand is still very tough. I mean, I get investors all the time telling us, hey, anything that you get, I've got cash, I'm ready to go, I'll pull the trigger, I'm ready to go now. So, I mean, the price and demand, and, to rent the properties, it's a huge rental market. We're renting properties within 2 or 3 days once these properties are vacant, and, we're getting top price for them. Our average days on market is 18 to 35 days on market. So they don't sit very long as is.
Well, yeah. So if you've got a $220,000 house, what's that going to rent for?
Obviously, it's, like everything, it depends on the area, but you're probably looking at $2,500 a month would be a fair estimate.
Boy, crazy. Yeah, because I thought we'd be 17, 18, depending on where you're at with that, probably closer, under 2,000, most likely in Seattle.
And don't forget, that $220,000 house, you're probably looking at something that is either new or built within the last 5 years. So these are not old houses. If you're looking at something if you're talking something built in the 60s and 50s, that's going to be about maybe a $60,000 or $70,000 house.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, so you're talking a good, solid rental income for a relatively new house.
Very solid. And so obviously, and so when you buy a new house, we have a lot of people actually from Seattle and the West Coast that are buying properties that I manage the properties for. And, they buy these things and, they have home warranties. Some of them are brand new construction. I mean, they're buying them brand new. And, everybody has a different business model. Some of these guys are buying these properties and they're saying, what, I'm just going to sit on this. I'm going to break even instead of making, a couple $100 a month. I may make $100 a month, but the big payoff is 5 years from now when all the Exxon is built out and everything is built out. I'm going to make my money by cashing in at that point because, when you're around something like Exxon or, Chevron is planning to build another plant up there.
Crazy.
It's price and demand.
Yeah, boy, we're just running into this
30 seconds
here. info@empireindustriesllc.com. Is that the best place to get you by email? And then what's your website?
Our website is www.empireindustriesllc.com.
Okay, cool. Empire Industries LLC. Just Google it. It'll pop up all over too. Steven Rozenberg's been with us talking about Houston, and particularly about property management, how important that is to find a good one. And Steven BigHaus, or Steve BigHaus from Team BigHaus, Security National Mortgage with us as well. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of this station.
SecurityNational Mortgage Company is licensed in Washington State and is an equal housing lender. Opinions discussed on this program should not be deemed the opinion of SecurityNational Mortgage, its parent company, or affiliates. Content is based upon information considered reliable, but neither SecurityNational Mortgage or its affiliates warrants its completeness, accuracy, or is it a commitment of any kind. Terms and conditions apply. All loans are subject to underwriter approval. Company NMLS ID number 3116.
Business Radio 1300 Weather.
Here's the weather.